When Napoleon Hill first began his monumental journey to unlock the secrets of success, he embarked on what would become one of the most transformative research projects in the history of self-improvement and personal development. After conducting thousands of hours of interviews with over 500 of the world's most successful individuals, titans of industry, financial magnates, innovators, and visionaries, Hill discovered something remarkable that transcended all the typical explanations for success that circulate through society. It was not superior intelligence alone that separated the successful from the unsuccessful, for Hill had encountered many highly intelligent people who struggled throughout their lives. It was not educational credentials or formal training that created the divide, because Hill had studied many successful people with minimal formal education, as well as many highly educated individuals who never achieved significant success. It was not family wealth or privileged background, because Hill had documented numerous examples of individuals who rose from abject poverty to tremendous wealth and prominence. And it was not luck or mere chance, for when Hill examined the successful lives carefully, he discovered that these individuals had deliberately, consciously shaped their destinies through specific mental principles and practice. The single common element that Hill identified across virtually every success story he examined was what he termed burning desire, an intense, all-consuming, passionate yearning for a specific objective that dominated the person's thoughts, influenced their decisions, and drove their actions in a coordinated direction toward achievement. This concept of burning desire is fundamentally different from the casual wanting that most people experience. In modern society, almost everyone wants to be wealthy, healthy, successful, and happy. These vague desires are as common as breathing air. They permeate the consciousness of billions of people who nevertheless remain stuck in mediocrity and struggle throughout their lives. The desire to be wealthy is pleasant to contemplate, but it creates no movement toward actual wealth. The wish to be successful generates no real progress toward genuine success. However, burning desire is something altogether different in nature and intensity. Burning desire is so specific, so vivid, so emotionally charged, and so consistently present in the person's mind that it begins to reshape their entire being, their self-image, their beliefs about what is possible, their expectations regarding their future, and most important, when a person possesses a true burning desire, they do not simply wish or hope for their objective. They are consumed by it, driven by it, and willing to sacrifice, struggle, and persist indefinitely to achieve. The distinction between burning desire and mere wanting is not merely academic or psychological. It has profound practical implications for whether a person actually achieves their objectives or remains perpetually trapped in disappointed hopes and unfulfilled aspirations. A person who casually wants to be rich might spend a few minutes a day thinking about wealth, might occasionally take small steps toward financial improvement, but when faced with obstacles or difficulties, will easily abandon their efforts and return to their previous existence. This person will accept discouragement from others and will allow temporary setbacks to convince them that their objective is not achievable. In contrast, a person with burning desire for wealth thinks about it constantly throughout the day, takes deliberate and strategic action to move toward it, persists through obstacles because they have mentally committed to achieving their objective, regardless of the difficulties, and draws strength and motivation from the very obstacles that would cause someone with weaker desire to quit. The burning desire is not a luxury or an enhancement to success. It is the fundamental fuel that drives all significant achievement. Hill illustrated this powerful principle through the remarkable true story of Edwin C. Barnes, a young man who embodied the principle of burning desire in its purest form. Barnes was not born to wealth or privilege. He did not inherit a successful business or benefit from influential family connections. By every measure, He was an ordinary young man with no apparent advantages or special circumstances. Yet, Barnes harbored a burning desire that would transform his entire life and lead him to achieve success that seemed impossible when he first conceived his objective. The specific object of his burning desire was to become the business partner of Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors in human history and one of the most influential figures of his era. Most people would consider this objective to be absurdly impossible. How could an unknown young man with no particular accomplishments or connections expect to become the partner of the most famous inventor in the world? The odds seemed infinitely against such an outcome. Yet, Barnes's burning desire was so intense that he allowed this vision to completely dominate his thinking. Barnes did not develop this burning desire casually or superficially. He had contemplated the objective over a long period, allowing it to take root in his consciousness and gradually intensify until it became the central focus of his existence. The desire had grown so powerful that he could no longer imagine a future that did not include partnership with Edison. It was not something he thought about occasionally. It was something that filled his mind during his waking hours and occupied his dreams at night. The mental image of himself as Edison's partner had become so vivid and so real in his mind that he carried himself as if this partnership already existed, even though in physical reality, he had no connection to Edison whatsoever. This mental certainty, this unwavering internal conviction that the partnership would eventually be achieved, became the foundation upon which all of Barnes's subsequent actions were based. When Barnes arrived in Orange, New Jersey, at the facilities where Edison conducted his manufacturing operations, he did not come with a job offer or a position already secure. Instead, he simply arrived with his burning desire and his willingness to do whatever was necessary to work in proximity to Edison and to eventually achieve the partnership he envisioned. Barnes accepted the most humble position available, a position so basic and so far removed from the executive levels that most ambitious young men would have considered it beneath their dignity and would have refused. But Barnes did not see this position as beneath him. Instead, he saw it as the first step on a longer journey that would eventually lead to the partnership he so intensely desired. He understood that this humble beginning was necessary, that he had to prove himself through consistent, dedicated work before he could ever expect to be elevated to a position of greater responsibility and authority. For 5 years, Barnes worked in this humble position, performing tasks that were often far beneath his capabilities and his ambitions. During these 5 years, most of his colleagues and even many people within the Edison organization had no awareness that this ordinary employee harbored an extraordinary dream. To them, he was simply another worker performing routine duties, indistinguishable from hundreds of other employees who had worked for Edison over the years. To his supervisors, he appeared to be a competent but unremarkable worker, neither standing out as exceptionally brilliant nor failing to meet the basic standards required for his position. If anyone had asked Barnes during those 5 years when he would become Edison's partner, the objective would have seemed like the fantasy of a deluded young man with unrealistic expectations about his own importance and potential. However, what made Barnes fundamentally different from the thousands of other employees who worked for Edison during this same period was the burning desire that burned continuously within him and shaped every decision he made. While other employees saw their jobs as merely ways to earn a paycheck to support themselves, Barnes saw every task as an opportunity to demonstrate his value, to develop his understanding of Edison's work and philosophy, and to position himself for the moment when opportunity would finally arrive. He performed his work with such professionalism, dedication, and attention to detail that he could not help but eventually come to the attention of superiors with the power to elevate him to greater responsibility. More importantly, through 5 years of dedicated observation and work within the Edison organization, Barnes had become intimately familiar with Edison's business operations, his manufacturing processes, his vision for the future, and the challenges that needed to be addressed to move the business forward. The opportunity, when it finally came, did not arrive as a dramatic, sudden event. Rather, it came quietly and naturally as a direct consequence of the groundwork Barnes had laid through 5 years of consistent, dedicated work. Edison had developed a new product that represented an important advancement for his business, and this product required a salesman who possessed not only the ability to sell, but also someone with deep understanding of the product and Edison's vision. A salesman with only superficial knowledge could present the product adequately, but Edison recognized that this product was so important to his business that he needed someone who understood it at a profound level and could communicate Edison's vision to potential customers with authentic enthusiasm and complete knowledge. When Edison considered who possessed this rare combination of qualities, the obvious choice was Barnes, the humble employee who had spent 5 years developing exactly this kind of comprehensive understanding, and who had demonstrated unwavering commitment to the success of the Edison organization. What began as a sales opportunity eventually led to the full business partnership that Barnes had so intensely desired and so patiently worked toward. The burning desire that had consumed him for so many years had not disappeared during those 5 years of humble work. Rather, it had remained constantly present, driving him forward, motivating him to perform excellently, even in tasks that seemed insignificant, and maintaining his conviction that the partnership would eventually be achieved. When the partnership finally came, it was not as a gift or charity from Edison. Rather, it was the natural result of Barnes having proven through his actions over 5 years that he possessed the qualities necessary to be a valuable business partner. The burning desire had not magically created the partnership. Instead, it had motivated the actions that eventually made the partnership possible. The principle illustrated by Barnes's experience is fundamental to understanding how burning desire operates in the practical world. Burning desire is not a magical force that causes objectives to materialize out of thin air. Rather, burning desire is a psychological state that produces a cascade of effects. It dominates the person's thinking. It influences their decisions. It motivates them to take action. It causes them to notice opportunities that others would overlook. Through these psychological effects, burning desire gradually transforms the person's circumstances, relationships, and opportunities in ways that move them toward their objective. The transformation appears almost miraculous to observers who do not understand the underlying principle. They see someone suddenly achieve remarkable success and attribute it to luck or external circumstances, when in reality, the person's achievement is the direct result of burning desire, having motivated years of consistent action and strategic position. Hill emphasized that burning desire must be specific and clearly defined. A person cannot simply desire success in vague terms and expect burning desire to carry them toward achievement. Instead, the burning desire must have a specific object, a clearly defined target that the person can envision, visualize, and constantly hold in mind. When a person decides that they want to accumulate a specific amount of money, not just be rich, but accumulate exactly $500,000 or $1 million, or whatever specific figure represents their objective. The specificity creates clarity that allows the mind to organize itself. When a person decides that they want to achieve a specific position, create a specific business, or develop a specific skill or ability, this specificity gives the mind direction and allows all the person's mental and physical resources to be coordinated toward the achievement of this specific goal. The reason that specificity is so crucial lies in how the human mind actually operates. The mind is designed to move toward the dominant thought. Whatever thought occupies the mind most frequently will tend to influence the person's behavior and direct their attention and energy. If a person's dominant thought is vague, such as "I want to be successful sometime in the future," then the mind has no clear target to move toward, and the person's efforts remain scattered and ineffective. However, if the person's dominant thought is specific, such as "I will accumulate $1 million by the time I am 40 years old, and I will do this by building a business that serves this specific market," then the mind has a clear target. The mind begins to notice opportunities related to the specific goal. It begins to filter information to highlight relevant knowledge and insights. It begins to filter the person's own thoughts to keep the goal constantly present in consciousness. Hill taught that burning desire must be coupled with a clear and detailed plan for achieving the objective. The burning desire provides the emotional fuel and the motivation. The plan provides the direction for how that fuel and motivation will be channeled. Without a plan, burning desire can drive a person toward action, but the action may be scattered, inefficient, or misdirected. With a clear plan, the burning desire drives focused, efficient, coordinated action toward the specific objective. The plan does not need to be perfect or completely detailed at the outset. In fact, Hill emphasized that people often wait for the perfect plan before taking action, and this waiting becomes a form of procrastination that allows fear and doubt to undermine the burning desire. Instead, Hill recommended that people take action immediately with whatever plan they can develop, understanding that as they take action, new information will be revealed that allows them to refine and improve the plan. One of the most striking elements of Hill's teaching about burning desire involves the concept of removing all retreat. In ancient times, when a great military commander needed to move his army to a distant location, the commander had to overcome a particular psychological challenge. His soldiers might be tempted to flee or retreat if the battle became difficult or appeared to be going badly. To overcome this temptation and to force his soldiers to fight with complete commitment, the commander employed a bold strategy. He transported his troops across the ocean in ships, and upon arrival at the destination, before the first battle began, he gave an order that would transform the psychology of the entire army. The commander ordered that all the ships be burned. By destroying the means of retreat, the commander created a situation where his soldiers had no option but to move forward and fight with complete commitment. There was no possibility of retreat. There was no escape. There was nothing left but the determination to achieve victory or perish in the attempt. This removal of the possibility of retreat created a psychological transformation in the soldiers that made them into an unstoppable force. They fought not merely because they were ordered to fight, but because they had no other choice. They fought with a level of commitment and intensity that made them nearly invincible. Hill used this military example to illustrate the importance of burning desire being accompanied by what he called the removal of all bridges of retreat. When a person contemplating success in business, financial achievement, or any other field leaves themselves escape routes, a secure job to fall back on, savings to rely upon if their venture fails, the ability to return to their previous life if they do not succeed at their new pursuit, they are essentially keeping one foot in their old life. This divided commitment inevitably weakens their determination and reduces their willingness to do whatever is necessary to succeed. However, when a person burns their bridges and commits themselves fully to their objective with no possibility of retreat, they activate a psychological force that drives them to find solutions, to overcome obstacles, and to achieve success because they have no other option. Throughout history, virtually every individual who achieved extraordinary success first demonstrated an intense burning desire for that success, and many of them employed the principle of burning all bridges behind them. When Henry Ford decided that he wanted to build an automobile that ordinary people could afford, he did not hedge his bets or maintain alternative plans. He committed himself completely to this objective, understanding that if he failed at this venture, he would lose everything. This complete commitment, coupled with his burning desire, drove him to persist through the numerous challenges that arose during the development and manufacturing of the automobile. When the Wright brothers decided to achieve manned flight, they abandoned other pursuits and committed themselves entirely to this objective. They spent years in patient experimentation, facing constant failure and encountering ridicule from those who believed that manned flight was impossible, or that these bicycle mechanics had no business attempting such an ambitious objective. Yet they persisted because their burning desire was so intense and their commitment so complete that they could not be deterred by obstacles or criticism. Thomas Edison's burning desire to create an electric light that could be commercially practical and widely used drove him through over 10,000 experiments. When Edison encountered a failure, which occurred thousands of times, he did not interpret this as evidence that his objective was impossible. Instead, he interpreted each failure as valuable information that eliminated one possible approach and directed his attention toward other potential solutions. This interpretation of failure as simply information rather than as evidence of impossibility is characteristic of people with true burning desire. A person without burning desire interprets failure as a signal to abandon the objective and try something different. A person with burning desire interprets failure as a necessary step on the path to success. The inventor Marconi burned with a desire to harness invisible forces in the air to transmit messages across vast distances without physical wires connecting the sender and receiver. His contemporaries thought he was insane. They believed that what Marconi proposed was physically impossible and that he was wasting his time and resources pursuing an impossible dream. Yet Marconi's burning desire drove him to persist despite this widespread ridicule and skepticism. Today, the wireless transmission of signals that Marconi envisioned has become so commonplace that we take it completely for granted. We transmit information wirelessly through the air constantly without even thinking about it. But in Marconi's time, this seemed impossible to most people. Marconi's burning desire allowed him to see what others could not see, to believe what others thought was impossible, and to persist through failures and criticism that would have caused someone with lesser desire to abandon the objective. Alexander Graham Bell possessed a burning desire to transmit the human voice across electrical wires, an objective that seemed equally impossible to many of his contemporaries. The telephone was not an obvious invention. The path from Bell's burning desire to the creation of a working telephone involved numerous technical challenges that had to be overcome through creative problem solving, persistent experimentation, and unwavering belief that the objective was achievable. Yet, Bell's burning desire, combined with his technical knowledge and his willingness to persist through failures, eventually led to the development of the telephone, which would transform human communication forever. President Abraham Lincoln burned with a desire to preserve the Union and to free enslaved people throughout the nation, even though achieving this objective required him to lead the country through the most devastating war in American history. Lincoln faced enormous obstacles, political opposition, military setbacks, doubts about whether victory was possible, and the constant pressure of a nation divided and fighting against itself. Yet his burning desire to preserve the Union and to free enslaved people provided the internal strength and commitment that allowed him to persevere through this crisis. Similarly, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, despite being stricken by a disease that left him unable to walk, maintained a burning desire to lead his nation through economic depression and military conflict. His burning desire gave him the motivation to overcome his physical limitations and to make decisions that transformed the nation and the world. Hill developed a specific 6-step formula that he believed could be applied to the achievement of virtually any objective. The first step is to establish the exact amount of money that the person desires to acquire, or, in more general terms, the specific objective that they wish to achieve. This must not be vague or general. It must be specific, measurable, and clearly defined. A person cannot simply decide that they want to be rich. They must decide upon an exact figure: $50,000, $100,000, $1 million, or whatever specific amount represents their objective. A person cannot simply decide that they want to be successful in business. They must define what success means to them in specific, concrete terms. This specificity is crucial because the mind requires a clear target upon which to focus its attention and energy. The second step is to determine exactly what the person is willing to give in exchange for achieving their objective. He'll emphasize that this exchange principle is fundamental to success. Nothing significant comes without a price. For every objective achieved, something must be given up or sacrificed. The person might need to sacrifice free time, comfort, social activities, leisure pursuits, or other valued aspects of their life. The price might involve years of study or training. It might involve risk of financial loss or damage to one's reputation. By clearly identifying what price they are willing to pay, the person demonstrates their seriousness about the objective and begins the process of aligning their actions with their stated goal. This step also prevents people from being surprised or discouraged when they discover that achieving their objective requires sacrifice. They've already acknowledged this fact and accepted it as part of the price. The third step involves establishing a specific deadline by which the person intends to achieve their objective. This deadline creates urgency and accountability. Without a deadline, it is far too easy for a person to procrastinate indefinitely, always planning to begin their serious efforts tomorrow, next week, or next month. The deadline serves as an anchor that keeps the person focused and committed. The deadline should be realistic but challenging. It should be far enough in the future to allow for the necessary work to be completed, yet close enough to create a sense of urgency that motivates action. Hill emphasized that the deadline is not something that should be vague or flexible. It should be a specific date written down and committed to. The fourth step is to create a clear, concrete plan for achieving the objective, and to begin implementing this plan immediately, regardless of whether the person feels completely ready or whether circumstances seem favorable. Hill emphasized repeatedly that waiting for the perfect moment, for all conditions to align favorably, or for complete certainty is a form of self-sabotage. The perfect moment never arrives. Circumstances are never completely favorable, and certainty is something that develops through action and progress, not something that precedes action. Therefore, the person should begin immediately, taking whatever steps are available to them now, trusting that additional steps and opportunities will become apparent as they progress. The fifth step involves writing out a detailed statement that summarizes all the key elements of the goal, the specific amount or objective, what will be given in exchange for achieving it, the deadline for achievement, and a clear description of the plan for achieving the objective. This written statement should be comprehensive and detailed, capturing all the essential elements in language that is clear and emotionally moving. The act of writing creates a powerful psychological effect. It transforms the goal from a vague mental concept into a concrete physical manifestation that can be touched, seen, and reviewed, repeated. Hill believed that this physical manifestation of the goal was a crucial step in the process of transforming the goal from an abstract wish into a concrete objective that the mind could work toward effectively. The sixth and final step involves reading the written statement aloud twice daily, preferably in the morning immediately upon waking and in the evening before going to sleep. During this reading, the person should not passively recite the words mechanically. Instead, they should visualize themselves as already having achieved the objective, should feel the emotions associated with this achievement, and should mentally experience the satisfaction, joy, and fulfillment that comes from having accomplished what they set out to do. Hill emphasized that this is not mere fantasy or escapism. Rather, it represents a powerful psychological technique for programming the subconscious mind to work continuously toward the achievement of the stated objective. Many people who first encounter these recommendations are skeptical, believing that simply reading a written statement and visualizing success cannot possibly have any bearing on whether they actually achieve success in the material world. This skepticism often stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human mind functions and how the mind's processes influence behavior and outcome. However, Hill's research revealed that this six-step formula, when applied with consistent dedication and genuine burning desire, produces remarkable results. The reason this formula is effective lies in how the human mind actually operates. The human mind operates according to certain fundamental principles that can be understood and leveraged to achieve extraordinary results. First, the mind tends to move toward the dominant thought. Whatever thought occupies the mind most frequently will tend to influence the person's behavior and decision. Therefore, by repeatedly reviewing the written statement and visualizing the achievement of the goal, the person ensures that their goal remains the dominant thought in their mind. This dominant thought gradually begins to influence their unconscious mind, which then begins to seek out opportunities, connections, and possibilities that align with the stated goal. The mind begins to filter information to highlight relevant knowledge and insights that relate to the goal. The person begins to make different decisions because their mind is now oriented toward their goal. Second, the mind requires clarity and specificity in order to function effectively. When a goal is vague and ill-defined, the mind cannot work efficiently toward its achievement. However, when a goal is specific and clearly defined, the mind can organize all its resources in a coordinated manner to move toward that objective. This is why the first step of the formula, establishing the exact objective, is so crucial. Without this clarity, all subsequent steps lose much of their effectiveness. Third, the mind responds powerfully to emotional engagement and visualization. When a person simply thinks about their goal in a detached intellectual manner, the impact on behavior is limited. However, when a person visualizes their goal, imagines themselves achieving it, and engages emotionally with a vision of their achievement, the psychological impact is dramatically increased. This is why step 6 of the formula, reading the statement and visualizing the achievement, is so important. The emotional and visual engagement of the mind creates a powerful motivational force that drives action. Scientists studying the brain have discovered that when a person vividly visualizes achieving a goal, the brain activates similar neural pathways as it does when the person actually achieves the goal. This suggests that repeated visualization actually trains the brain to work toward the objective. Fourth, the mind works most effectively when it has clear direction and purpose. This is why the deadline is so important. It gives the mind a specific target to work toward and creates a sense of urgency that motivates action. Similarly, the plan for achieving the objective gives the mind direction and reduces the likelihood that efforts will become scattered or ineffective. The mind functions as a goal-seeking mechanism. When it has a clear goal to seek, it functions efficiently. When it lacks a clear goal, its power is dissipated. The process by which burning desire manifests into physical reality is gradual and progressive. When a person first begins practicing Hill's six-step formula with their burning desire to achieve a specific objective, they may not immediately see external changes. However, internal changes are occurring in their mind. Their subconscious mind is being reprogrammed. Their neural pathways are being restructured through repeated visualization and affirmation. Their perceptions are beginning to shift. Where they once saw obstacles as insurmountable barriers, they now begin to see them as challenges to be solved. Where they once saw setbacks as evidence of failure, they now begin to see them as information that redirects their efforts toward more effective approaches. As these internal changes occur, the person's external circumstances begin to shift as well. Opportunities that were previously invisible become suddenly visible and obvious. The person begins to notice people, resources, and connections that align with their goal. Conversations with acquaintances begin to turn toward topics related to their objective. They begin to receive information that is relevant to their goal from unexpected sources. These synchronicities, these seemingly miraculous coincidences, are not actually miraculous at all. They result from the person's mind being oriented toward their goal and therefore noticing and recognizing opportunities that were always present, but that they would not have noticed without their mind being thus oriented. Gradually, the person's behavior and decisions begin to align with their objective. They find themselves taking actions that move them toward their goal. They make different choices than they would have made without the burning desire and the programming of their mind through the six-step formula. They invest time, energy, and sometimes money in pursuits and relationships that support their objective. They say no to opportunities that do not align with their goal, where previously they might have been distracted by these opportunities. Over time, these changed decisions and changed actions produce changed circumstances. What once seemed impossible gradually becomes possible, then probable, then actual. One of the most important aspects of Hill's teaching is his recognition that the process of transforming burning desire into physical reality typically involves facing obstacles, setbacks, and periods of discouragement. Every person who achieves significant success encounters these difficulties. Hill identified several common obstacles that prevent people from cultivating and maintaining the burning desire necessary to achieve significant objectives. The first obstacle is the influence of other people's skepticism and doubt. When a person reveals their burning desire to others, particularly to family members, friends, or colleagues who may not share their vision, they often encounter skepticism, discouragement, or outright ridicule. A person who has not yet developed a strong foundation of self-belief can be easily swayed by this external criticism, and their burning desire can be extinguished before it has had time to grow into the powerful force necessary to drive achievement. The second obstacle is the natural human tendency toward comfort and the path of least resistance. Achieving significant objectives typically requires the person to step outside their comfort zone, to take risks, and to persist through periods of difficulty and uncertainty. Many people discover that the discomfort required to achieve their goal exceeds their burning desire to achieve it, and therefore they choose the easier path of abandoning their objective and returning to their more comfortable previous existence. This is where the principle of burning all bridges becomes so important. If the person has already committed to their objective so completely that retreat is not an option, they are more likely to persist through the discomfort and push through to the other side. The third obstacle is the influence of fear. Fear of failure, fear of ridicule, fear of the unknown, fear of the responsibility that comes with success. These fears are natural human responses. Virtually everyone experiences them. However, a person with a true burning desire must develop the ability to feel fear, yet take action anyway. Burning desire does not eliminate fear. Rather, it provides a force that is stronger than the fear and therefore compels the person to move forward despite the fear. As the person takes action despite fear, they discover that the fear was less powerful and less real than it seemed when they were contemplating action. This discovery gradually builds confidence and reduces the power that fear has over them. The fourth obstacle is the tendency to allow temporary setbacks and failures to extinguish the burning desire. Every person who achieves significant success encounters failures, setbacks, and periods when their objective seems impossibly distant. Many people allow these temporary setbacks to convince them that their objective is not achievable, and they therefore abandon their pursuit. However, a person with a true burning desire understands that setbacks are temporary obstacles to be overcome, not permanent evidence that the objective cannot be achieved. Every failure contains within it the seed of an equivalent or greater success, Hill taught. The key is to extract the lesson from the failure and apply that lesson to move more effectively toward the objective. The fifth obstacle is the influence of one's own limiting beliefs about what is possible. Many people have accepted limiting beliefs about their own capabilities, their family background, their education, or their current circumstances that convince them they are not capable of achieving significant objectives. These limiting beliefs act as invisible barriers that prevent the person from even attempting to achieve their objective. A person who believes that they are not intelligent enough to be a successful entrepreneur will not attempt to start a business because they have already decided that failure is inevitable. A person who believes that people from their background cannot achieve wealth will not take the actions necessary to accumulate wealth because they have already decided that this outcome is impossible for someone like them. However, burning desire, when combined with faith and determination, can gradually transform these limiting beliefs and expand the person's sense of what is possible. Hill emphasized the crucial role that faith and belief play in manifesting burning desire into physical reality. A person cannot achieve anything that they do not first believe is possible. This is not merely a philosophical observation. It has profound practical implications. When Edison was developing the electric light, many people believed that such a device was impossible to create. The scientific community was divided on whether an electric light could ever be practical or commercially viable. However, Edison did not allow the prevailing skepticism to influence his own belief in the possibility of his objective. He maintained an unwavering faith that he would eventually develop a working electric light, and this faith sustained him through over 10,000 experiments. If Edison had allowed himself to be persuaded by the skepticism of others, if he had permitted doubt to replace his faith, he would undoubtedly have abandoned the project long before achieving success. The power of faith in the context of burning desire operates according to principles that modern psychology has documented and confirmed. When a person truly believes that they will achieve their objective, this belief begins to influence their perception of events and opportunities. A person with strong belief will notice opportunities that someone without this belief would overlook. A person with strong belief will interpret setbacks and failures as temporary obstacles to be overcome, rather than as evidence that their objective is impossible. A person with strong belief will persist through difficulties and challenges that would cause someone with weaker belief to give up. In this way, faith becomes not merely a spiritual concept, but a practical psychological tool that influences behavior and outcome. Hill taught that the development of this faith and belief involves deliberately reinforcing through repeated mental and emotional practice. The individual should not only read their written statement of desire and visualize their achievement of the objective. They should also regularly engage in statements of faith and belief. They should remind themselves that their objective is achievable, that they possess the necessary abilities to achieve it, and that circumstances will eventually align to provide them with the opportunity to achieve their objective. They should use affirmations and positive self-talk to counter any doubts or negative beliefs that arise from within or are suggested by external sources. This practice is not mere positive thinking or cheerful optimism. Rather, it represents a deliberate reprogramming of the mind to accept the possibility of achievement and to believe in one's own capacity to achieve. The story of Marshall Field provides an excellent illustration of how burning desire, combined with faith and determination, allows a person to overcome what would seem to be insurmountable obstacles. In 1871, the Great Chicago Fire devastated the city, destroying businesses, homes, and the livelihoods of thousands of people. A group of merchants gathered to discuss whether they should attempt to rebuild their businesses in Chicago or relocate to a more prosperous region where rebuilding would be less difficult and where the conditions for business success would be more favorable. All the merchants except one decided to relocate to a more promising region where they would face fewer challenges. However, one merchant with a burning desire to build the greatest store in the world stood among the ruins of his former business and declared his intention to rebuild. He pointed at what remained of his store and declared that regardless of what had burned, he would construct the greatest store in the world in that very spot. This merchant was Marshall Field, and his burning desire, combined with his determination to overcome the obstacles presented by the fire's destruction, led him to build what became one of the most successful and famous department stores in the world. Field became legendary, not because his path to success was easier than the paths of other merchants, but precisely because his path was difficult, and he chose to persist through that difficulty. Every subsequent generation that looked upon Field's great store understood that this structure stood as a monument to burning desire, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat when faced with seemingly impossible obstacles. Field had not been favored by circumstances. Indeed, the Great Fire had destroyed his business and made the path forward more difficult. Yet his burning desire to build the greatest store in the world had provided the internal strength and commitment to persist through this crisis and emerge victorious. While Hill's research was conducted in the early 20th century, the principle of burning desire remains as relevant and powerful today as it was when Hill first articulated. The external circumstances of modern life have changed dramatically. Technology has transformed communication, transportation, and the availability of information. But human nature remains fundamentally unchanged. People today still respond to burning desire in exactly the same ways that people did a century ago. The psychological principles upon which burning desire operates are universal principles that transcend time and circumstance. In modern times, there are perhaps more opportunities for achieving success and accumulating wealth than at any previous point in human history. The barriers to entry in many fields have been dramatically lowered by technology. A person with burning desire and access to the internet can develop skills, create products, reach audiences, and build businesses in ways that would have been impossible a century ago. Information that was once available only to the wealthy and privileged is now freely accessible to anyone with internet access. The tools for creating, communicating, and conducting business are available at a fraction of the cost they would have been even 20 years ago. In theory, this abundance of opportunity should make success easier to achieve and burning desire more likely to be effective. However, this abundance of opportunity has also created new challenges in cultivating and maintaining burning desire. In Hill's era, a person with burning desire had to take specific, clear actions to achieve their objective, and the obstacles were more external and tangible. Today, there are so many possible paths, so many distractions, and so many competing opportunities that a person's attention and energy can easily become scattered. The principle of burning desire becomes even more important in modern times because it provides the clarity and focus necessary to make sense of the overwhelming abundance of choices and opportunities. Without burning desire, a modern person can easily be distracted by the endless possibilities and end up pursuing nothing with sufficient intensity to achieve mastery or success. Additionally, modern culture often discourages the kind of intense, passionate focus on a single objective that burning desire requires. Contemporary life emphasizes versatility, the ability to multitask, and the maintenance of multiple interests and pursuits. While these qualities have their place, they can work against the development of burning desire. The cultivation of burning desire requires a willingness to prioritize one objective above others, at least for a period of time, and to direct the bulk of one's attention and energy toward that single objective. In a culture that valorizes diverse interests and multiple pursuits, this kind of singular focus can seem obsessive or unhealthy. Yet Hill's research demonstrated that this singular focus is precisely what separates those who achieve significant success from those who remain stuck in mediocrity. The subconscious mind plays a crucial role in manifesting burning desire into physical reality. Many people are skeptical of this concept because it seems to suggest that simply thinking about something in a certain way can cause it to materialize physically, which appears to contradict everything they know about how the physical world functions. However, a more careful examination reveals that Hill is not claiming that thought alone creates material reality. Rather, he is describing how the subconscious mind processes information and directs the conscious mind and body to take actions that eventually result in the manifestation of the desired objective. The subconscious mind is far more powerful and far more important to success than most people realize. The conscious mind is what we are aware of. It processes information, makes deliberate choices, and consciously directs our actions. However, the subconscious mind operates continuously outside of our conscious awareness, processing vast amounts of information, storing memories and experiences, and influencing our perceptions, emotions, and behaviors in ways that we are often not aware of. The subconscious mind is like the invisible captain of a ship. While the conscious mind appears to be steering, it is actually the subconscious mind that is controlling most of what the ship does. Research in neuroscience has confirmed that the vast majority of our decisions, behaviors, and perceptions are determined by subconscious processes rather than conscious deliberation. When a person repeatedly reviews their written goal statement, visualizes their achievement of the goal, and maintains burning desire for the achievement of the goal, this repeated input gradually reprograms the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind begins to accept the vision of the goal as if it were an established fact, and it begins to organize the person's perceptions, emotions, and behaviors in ways that are consistent with the achievement of this goal. The person begins to notice opportunities that align with their goal. Opportunities that were always there, but that they would not have noticed without the subconscious mind being primed to recognize them. This is the functioning of what researchers call the reticular activating system, the part of the brain that filters information and directs conscious attention. Once the reticular activating system has been programmed to recognize opportunities related to a specific goal, the person's brain begins to filter information differently, and what was previously invisible something obvious suddenly visible and obvious. The person begins to make decisions and take actions that move them toward their goal, often without consciously realizing that their decisions and actions are part of a coordinated effort toward achievement of the goal. A thought might occur to them to contact a particular person. They follow that thought and discover that this person possesses exactly the information or connection they needed. They might overhear a conversation in a coffee shop that provides the insight they needed to solve a problem that had been frustrating them. They might receive an email from someone they have not thought about in years, and this email contains an opportunity directly related to their objective. These synchronicities, these seemingly miraculous coincidences, occur because the subconscious mind is working to move them toward their goal. This process is not supernatural or mysterious. It is based on well-established principles of how the human mind functions. When the subconscious mind accepts a goal as real and achievable, it begins to operate according to the principle of the reticular activating system. The brain is constantly bombarded with vastly more information than the conscious mind can process. The reticular activating system acts as a filter that selects which information reaches consciousness. When the system has been programmed to recognize opportunities related to a specific goal, the brain begins to filter information so that relevant opportunities and information are highlighted and brought to consciousness. This explains why a person with burning desire suddenly begins to notice so many opportunities related to their goal. They are not seeing different opportunities than they were before. Rather, their brain is filtering information differently, highlighting the opportunities that were always present but were previously invisible. Ultimately, burning desire serves as the bridge that connects vision with reality, imagination with achievement, and dreams with accomplishment. Without burning desire, a vision remains nothing more than a fantasy or daydream, entertaining to think about but having no connection to physical reality. However, burning desire transforms the vision into something that drives action, that influences perception, and that gradually materializes into physical reality through the combined effects of changed thinking, different decisions, and different behavior. The individuals who achieve the greatest success are not necessarily those with the highest intelligence, the best education, or the greatest natural ability. Instead, they are those who possess the burning desire to achieve their objective and the determination to persist through all obstacles and setbacks. In conclusion, Napoleon Hill's teaching about burning desire represents one of the most important and practical principles for achieving success in any area of life. Burning desire is not a mystical or supernatural force. It is a psychological state that can be cultivated through deliberate practice and maintained through consistent reinforcement. When a person develops a true burning desire for a specific objective, when they combine this desire with a clear plan, unwavering faith, and persistent action, they activate psychological forces that inevitably lead toward the achievement of their objective. The transformation from desire to reality is not instantaneous. It requires time, patience, and persistence. However, for those willing to cultivate and maintain burning desire, willing to do whatever is necessary to achieve their objective, and willing to persist through obstacles and setbacks, the eventual achievement of their objective is virtually assured. The question is not whether burning desire can lead to success. Rather, the question is whether the individual has the courage and determination to truly develop burning desire and to do what is necessary to give it physical expression. The choice to cultivate burning desire is available to every person. The only requirement is willingness to commit to this principle and to apply it consistently in pursuit of one's most important objective.